I'm Georgia Newman from the Interrobang with this month's bonus episode of the Red Couch Podcast. This month, we are talking about some books, okay? It is spooky time. It's romance time. Let's talk about some romance novels that have some spooky undertones. BookTok is huge, okay? It is like its own genre. That's where I get a lot of my recommendations and my to-be-reads. We saw Haunting Adeline go viral, and currently there's 87.4 million posts relating to just that book on TikTok, which is insanity. So yeah, I just thought with it being spooky season, why not talk about a few of my favorite romance/suspense books that have some spooky undertones. The list starts off super easy rom-com books, and then we'll kind of get into the spookier, darker romances near the end of the list. Before you read any book, you're going to want to check out the trigger warnings. Some of these books don't even have trigger warnings. That's how easy they are, but some do. So definitely keep that in mind and make sure to read them before you start any book. So yeah, first book on my list, Play by Kylie Scott. This book is so easy to read. It is so just like fun and fresh. There's really no deep plot or anything going on that you need to really focus on. It follows Anna Roland's life while a relationship blooms with Mal Erickson, the drummer for a world-famous rock band called Stage Dive. I started this book after doing like a year or so without reading. I was just in such a bad book slump, and this got me right back into reading and loving it. So it's just such an easy, fun book to read. The book takes place in a rainy little city in North Carolina. Mal is definitely the class clown, and he had me laughing throughout all four of the books, but especially the first book when you're just kind of starting to get to know him. He is looking for a way to clean up his image and thinks having a nice girlfriend would do the trick. Anna is a bookworm with money problems and a teenage bedroom that is plastered with Mal Erickson's posters. She's not actually a teenager, but when she was a teenager, it was covered in Mal Erickson posters, if there was any confusion. When Mal propositions her to fake date him for a while for some cash, she can't say no. That's kind of how the book starts. The book is from Anna's perspective solely, so no dual POV here. It's 100% more of a rom-com book. It's not spooky at all other than the little city aspect of it, but I put it in this category because his nickname for her is Pumpkin, which is, come on, that's spooky. That's fall. Fake dating trope. It's the second book of a 4-book series, but they're all standalone, so you don't need to read all of them. They are light reads with few to none trigger warnings, but again, read at your own risk. The book has a happily ever after, and they are currently looking into doing a movie they're doing a movie adaptation of the first book, Lick, in the series. I do not agree with the cast list that they've chosen, but the release date is, I believe, in December. So definitely something to look into. Another book that had a movie adaptation is It Ends With Us, which is a book by Colleen Hoover that has some very, very heavy themes. If it is on your TBR, definitely look into reading the trigger warnings of it. But the movie adaptation caused a lot of controversy, and if you did want to read more about that, we do have an article on the Interrobang called An Entertainment or Awareness, It Ends With Us Controversy by Briar Wilson, who's an amazing reporter, so definitely check that out. The next book I want to talk about is Full Bloom by Jeanette Avanovic. I may have said that wrong. This is a standalone novel. It's part of a 5-book series, but again, they're all standalones. I only read this one. It's set in Beaumont, South Carolina. The book follows Annie Fortenberry as she runs her bed and breakfast and deals with being the number one suspect for the murder of her ex-husband. She recently inherited her bed and breakfast from her grandmother, but the manor is centuries old and holds secrets, including talk of ghosts. Annie welcomes a new guest to her B&B, Wes Bridges, who rides up to this cozy vintage manor on a motorcycle with his leather jacket, tattoos, and rough-around-the-edges personality. Annie is struggling to stay afloat during this tumultuous time in her life, and now she seems to have caught the eye of her edgy new roommate. The book hits every fall vibe, so we're talking cozy small town, we're talking spooky murder mystery, and ghosts. I mean, there's even a sidekick reading in it. It's perfect read for fall. There are some nutty tenants at the bed and breakfast that kind of help lighten and bring some comedic relief to it. It's, again, super great, light and easy read with no trigger warnings in the physical book. Definitely double check before. But yeah, it's told in a dual POV of Annie and Wes. The next book on my list is Rock Chick Redemption by Kristen Ashley. There is 9 books in this series, but they're all standalones, and this is, let me tell you, probably my most favorite book series ever. I have reread half of these. They're so amazing. They're so funny. They are just, oh my God, I cannot speak enough praise about these books. Kristen Ashley, she hits or misses sometimes because I don't like it when they start dating immediately. I like to kind of learn about the characters and then kind of, sit there and want them to get together and then, slow burn. Hers sometimes are not slow burn at all, but she focuses a lot on the actual relationship and the stuff that goes into the relationship, and it's definitely not instant love, which I despise. So yeah, this entire series is just one of my favorites. This book specifically follows Roxy Logan. She is on the run from her bad ex-boyfriend and decides to visit Denver to meet her long-lost Uncle Tex, who is my favorite character throughout all 9 novels. He is the best. He's so funny. He's a little lunatic. He's a little psycho. He's so funny. Tex has some friends in Denver, including Hank Nightingale, who's a cop. Hank wants Roxy, but Roxy sees him as this good, clean guy, and due to her past, she sees herself as dirty and unworthy of Hank. But Hank is ready to put in the work. Woo! Her Uncle Tex is unhinged and hilarious, like I said, and the banter throughout this book is just absolutely amazing. There are some miscommunications throughout the book if that's something you try to avoid in your novels, but it's not big enough or annoying enough for me to not love this novel. The book takes place in autumn, and at one point, Roxy's parents take it upon themselves to deck out Hank's place with pumpkins and all the fall essentials, and they even go to a haunted house. So very spooky, very fall. There are definitely some trigger warnings with the toxic ex, but overall, a light and easy read with a lot of humor. The book does end in happily ever after, and like I said, is a standalone. I cannot say enough praise about the Rock Chick Redemptions, or the Rock Chick books by Kristen Ashley. Every single one of them is so freaking amazing. They are so good. Definitely check them out. Another book that I will stand 10 toes behind is The Things We Left Behind by Lucy Score. This book isn't even remotely spooky. It's not at all. But it's placed in a small town, and I found the vibe of the book just made me want to cuddle up around a fire with a warm blanket and a hot chocolate. So to me, that's cozy, spooky vibes. Things We Left Behind is a 3rd book in a standalone trilogy about 3 best friends / brothers. The book follows Sloane Walton and Lucian Rollins, who were childhood neighbors. They had a spark but were strictly friends until something happened that made them hate each other. Unfortunately for them, their friends are in love with each other, so they end up having to see each other quite a bit at dinners and stuff like that. So they kind of have to speak to each other a lot more, and that's what kind of grows the relationship between them, I guess I'll say. But will their past be the deal breaker? Who knows? I do. I know. But anyways, despite Lucian being a tall millionaire and Sloane being like short and she's a librarian. She's just like a short librarian. Sloane has absolutely no problem standing toe to toe with Lucian, which I think is we love that. I love that so much. She's not expecting him to come save her. She doesn't want him to come save her. She wants to deal with her own stuff by herself, which I think is so amazing and was fun to read about. Lucy Score is amazing at writing banter. The book had me laughing out loud, and has become a book that I recommend to absolutely everybody if they're looking for a book to read. It is a tense, slow burn. You are going to be ready to fight Lucy Score by the time you're like halfway through the book, just waiting for something to happen. Lucian dealt with some childhood trauma, and although the book is comedic, there are definitely some trigger warnings that should be read before beginning the novel. Some of the tropes include second chance romance, sunshine and grumpy characters, forced proximity, and slow burn. And it's a dual POV, so both Sloane and Lucian have chapters. The next one, we're getting into some fantasy here, is Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Myers. This fantasy novel just makes you want to curl up and binge read the whole book. The book has no romance in it at all, but the chemistry between the villain and the assistant is downright palpable. The book was slow burn to the ultimate max. The book follows Evie Sage, who is in desperate need of employment, and her new employer known as the villain. As she's learning the ropes of the job and getting used to the villain's unique and murderous behavior, she finds out there's a leak in his organization working to take down the villain and his empire. Both Evie and the villain must fight this attraction growing between them, as well as work together to figure out how to save the villain and his empire. The book is viral on BookTok. I think I had to wait like a year to read it on the library. I ended up just buying it. But anyways, the novel is being hailed for the banter, which I agree. It's amazing. It had me laughing out loud. Evie is all sunshine and the villain is all broody and grumpy. The villain doesn't know why he feels this way and is surprised by the strength of his feelings for Evie, which I think is so fun because it's like usually it's the girl that's all emotional and he's the one that's like, I don't know what to do with my feelings right now. It is told in a dual POV from Evie and the villain. I just think this book is kind of spooky in regards to there's magic. You know what I mean? Like we're talking the villain, for cripe's sake. There's dragons, there's magic, there's potions, there's, just so many fantasy aspects to it that I think just, witches that just speak to Halloween. And I was obsessed with this book. I thought it was so amazing, especially considering there was no spice. It did have me wanting to fight the book at the end because I was like, come on, guys, please. Anyways, Hooked by Emily McIntyre is the next one on my list. This author is a viral TikTok book as well. Or sorry, it's another viral TikTok book. And it is a retelling of Peter Pan. But the villain ends up getting the girl, which I love. I love that so much. This book follows James, also known as Hook, as he seeks revenge against Wendy's dad. When James sees Wendy in his bar, he sees her as a pawn in his game of revenge. But through their whirlwind love affair, he begins to see something more. Wendy is also wrapped up in James' attention, but after secrets are spilled, will she be able to trust James again and move forward in their relationship? Who knows? So the book is told in a dual POV. It was amazing. It is one of those ones that I sat down and I read the entire novel in one night. It's not very comedic like the other books I talked about on the list, but there's definitely trigger warnings that can be found on the author Emily McIntyre's website. I would definitely categorize it as an enemy to lovers trope, even though she doesn't really know that they're enemies. And yeah, although it's not blatantly spooky, I feel like James, who's the villain, his villainous ways are told about because it's from both POVs. And I think Peter Pan is just kind of spooky in a way. I don't know, it just reminds me of fall. I don't know what to tell you. But the one thing that I will say is with retellings, a lot of the time, at least I find with retellings, it's very, very clear what the retelling is about. This one can stand on its own. It's so amazing. It was something that I loved. Like the title, the book had me hooked. Okay. Next, Butcher and the Blackbird by Brynne Weaver. This is the first book in a trilogy of standalones that follow the three Kane brothers' love lives. This viral BookTok book is about two serial killers, Sloane and Rowan, who go from friends to lovers. Both Sloane and Rowan focus on killing bad people and end up creating a bond after a chance encounter. A competition ensues of who is the best serial killer, where once a year they meet up to see who can kill the mark first. This book has comedic moments throughout the novel, but there are definitely a list of trigger warnings, and I'm talking like over a page of trigger warnings, including one about cookies and cream ice cream. So definitely read at your own risk. With every kill, Sloane weaves a spider-like web using the the person's eyeballs as the center of the web. And I think that's super fun. She uses the map to connect the person to crimes and unsavory actions, which I think definitely gives the book some spooky undertones. I mean, the comedy in this book is amazing. Most books, it's like the girl's sunshine, the guy's grumpy. In this one, it's the total opposite. She's the black cat, he's the golden retriever. Some of the other tropes include he falls first. Both of them are touch them and die kind of vibes. It's forced proximity, friends to lovers, and there is one bed. It's a dual POV, so both of them have their own chapters, and I think it's just really fun. She ends up being the hero too, which I love. So the last book I am choosing to talk about today is definitely maybe not the spookiest, but A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This book has amassed a following. It is one of the most talked about books, I think, right now. It's like the modern day Twilight or Harry Potter. Like, it is huge. And I stand behind this book. It is so fun. It is one of those books where you're never going to know what happens next in the book. There is never a point in that book where I could guess what the next page was going to tell me. I'm specifically talking about the first book. All of these other books that I've talked to you about today right now are standalones. This is one where this is the first book in a series, and you would need to commit to the series, which I think you should, because it gets great. It gets even better. The first book is just the tip of the iceberg. The book there's an autumn court, for cripe's sake. It is fall in a book. I read this book in fall, so maybe that's why I associate with fall. But again, a lot of magic. There's beasts, there's demons, there's fall court, spring court, there's fairies. It's just, I think, such a fun novel. And it's an emotional roller coaster for sure. If you commit to the series, it is something that you'll think about. But I love that you're part of a community in such a weird way. Once you read it, you'll go onto Instagram, you'll go onto TikTok, you'll see these reels and these videos talking about ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses, and you're like connected to all these people that you've never spoken to before, because you're like, oh my God, I thought the same thing. Oh my God, this, you know what I mean? And if you are planning on reading the book though, you need to like log off of Instagram and TikTok, because I was seeing spoilers while I was reading this novel, the series. Overall though, I thought it was amazing. I have some bad things to say about it, but I think that's just me personally and where I wanted the books to go. Again, keeps you on your toes. No idea what's going to happen next. The only thing I will say is if you do get wrapped into Sarah J. Maas, you are in for a ride, because there's the 5 books And they're big books. They're not little baby books, like 300 pages. Like 2 of the books in the ACOTAR series are like 700 or 800 pages. Then there's Crescent City. The one I'm reading right now is 1,200 pages. And there's 3 books that are, all 3 of them are the same kind of thickness. And then there's also Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, and they're all kind of interconnected. They're all in the same multiverse, which I think is fun. So yeah, I truly have nothing negative to say that I'm going to say about A Court of Thorns and Roses. I think it's amazing. And I think it just makes you part of a community. It's so fun to read. I liked that book a lot because you think you have figured everything out and you're like, oh, I know what's going to happen next. And honestly, within 5 pages, your entire point of view, your entire idea of the novel changes like that. Like it quite literally changes on a dime. So I think it's one of those books where there's nothing to say. It's just so good. There's a reason it's BookTok viral right now. There's a reason that so many people are standing behind this book, and Sarah J. Maas, you did good. But yeah, that's kind of my main list of books that I'm planning on talking about today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and all of our articles can be found on interrobang.ca, theinterrobang.ca. Thanks for listening, and I hope you guys have a great, happy Halloween.